These models have been in use for over 12 months. They do need to be kept in a refrigerator when they're not being used for teaching. The upper surface eventually becomes colonised by microbes in the same way as a petri dish. Then it's time to throw them out and cook up fresh ones. This one contains an IUD in a model uterus made from thickened gelatin and surrounded by lower density, more sonolucent gelatin. It also has a side portal for entry of a transvaginal transducer below the uterus. You can see the air in this is causing some interference. Each of the next two models has a balloon with water in it simulating a pregnancy sac, and a grape in the balloon which gives novices something to visualise and to measure. Smaller balloons simulate a smaller gestational sac. Larger balloons simulate later pregnancies and do not need to be filled as tightly. Then the balloon is less spherical and it will be indented on one side, mimicking the placental location. You may want to lay a piece of fabric on top of the gel before it sets completely to resist a bit of gouging from transducers and to stop students from visualising the uterus from above. Then they will have to focus on the ultrasound image to locate any structures. The ingredients you will need are dietary fibre such as psyllium or metamucil, food preservative from a home brew beer shop, gelatin in 100 or 120 gram packs from the baking goods aisle, balloons, and grapes. Choose a grape that is the size of the fetus you plan to simulate. I've picked one which is about the size of a 7 or 8 week fetus, and I'm putting it into a standard size balloon. If you want to simulate a very early pregnancy, you may need to cut a grape down to a smaller size and use a small balloon to make a smaller sac. I've used a small balloon here and filled it with water before tying it off. You will need a mixing bowl and whisks, pitchers for measuring both hot and cold water, a small sharp knife such as a paring knife, one or more small deep bowls of a size to make a model uterus. You can make a larger model with a larger bowl. And you also need a dipper to transfer sticky gel. Do not try tipping gel out of the big mixing bowl. It makes a mess which is quite difficult to clean up. And you will need a container with a secure lid which must be deep enough to contain the model uterus with a layer of gel over it. Make up a litre of thick gel starting with 500 ml of boiling water. Whisk in 120 grams of gelatin. This is quite a concentrated solution and it tends to form lumps. The hotter the water is and the more you stir, the less clots will become incorporated into the final product. If any of this mixture sets before you're ready to use it, you can melt it again in a microwave. It may come out very hot and you will then need to wait for it to cool. If you become impatient, hot liquid may melt parts of your model which were already set. Next, add your food preservative, about a tablespoonful. Potassium metabisulfite creates irritating fumes as it is mixed with hot liquid. Try not to inhale the steam or you will find yourself coughing. Then add your thickener. I used 8 tablespoons of metamucil for this brew. This mixture is quite hot. You can cool it by stirring in 500 ml of cold water. You now have more than a litre of thick, warm gel. You can start to create a model uterus by putting a water-filled balloon into a deep bowl and partly filling the bowl with dense gel mixture until the balloon floats in the centre of the bowl. Now put the bowl in the fridge until the gel sets, trapping the balloon like this. Once the balloon is fixed in place, you can fill that bowl up, covering the balloon. Then put it back in the fridge to set into a gelatine block with the balloon in the centre of it. Once you have a block to work on, art meets science. Use the knife to sculpt the block into the shape of a uterus and cervix. If you can see the knot of the balloon near the surface, that will help you orient yourself and avoid cutting into the balloon. The gel you leave surrounding the balloon will appear as myometrium in an ultrasound image. Do not pour any leftover gel into a sink or drain. It will set in there and block the plumbing. It is best to let it set and then put solid pieces like these offcuts into a waste bin for landfill, or you could store them in a freezer to use for future creations. When you have the shape right, take your masterpiece and rub it under warm running water to smooth off sharp angles and ridges. Then put it in the fridge to cool while you're making up another mixture of lower density sonolucent gel using 500 ml of hot water, 100 or 120 grams of gelatin, some preservatives, and 500 ml of cold water to cool the mixture down. Place the uterus in the container. Partly fill the container with the sonolucent gel so that the model uterus floats up off the bottom, but not so much that the top of the uterus rises above the rim of the tupper. Now you will see whether you made the uterus small enough to fit into your container. Put it into the fridge until the gel sets, trapping the uterus in the middle of the tub. Once it is fixed in place, fill the container up with more gel, but not quite to the brim. You want a little bit of space under the lid to allow it to close. And you can see how fabric can protect the top surface if you add some of that just before the gel finally sets. You may want to make different models. I tried to model a molar pregnancy by filling a balloon with grapes, adding water and making a thick gel uterine wall. It failed because air bubbles amongst the grapes cast black sound shadows, but it still gave us some pathology to discuss during tutorials.